Like friends and family were saying, why are you buying these properties for? You should buy these properties, you should do that and whatnot. And I thought to myself, like, if I do what you've done, I'll get what you've got.
Nathan Birch, 35 years old, from Sydney.
Yep.
You're 35 years old and you own over 200 homes.
Yeah.
Now, I've been in real estate industry for over 20 years, and I've seen people that own one house, or 5, or 20 homes. And then I know a few people that own 50. You own over 200 homes.
Over 200.
So from my understanding, you didn't have a family that gave you 200 homes. You hustled your way from 0 to over 200 homes. Take us back.
Started when I was about 13 years old, right? Like most of my friends were getting magazines and I was getting my hands on the homes magazines. And with the properties, I was excited because my brothers were about, like my parents were nearly 50 when they had me. And when I was growing up, my brothers were like 30. They were buying a house to live in and a house for investment. And I was like, I want to be like my brothers. And I was 13 years old, but my family always struggled. I came from a blue collar family, Western Sydney, and I didn't want to have to work. I failed every grade from kindergarten to year 12, so I was thinking my income potential from getting a job wasn't going to be the greatest. So I thought, rich people have property, I want to have property. More property you have, richer I'll be. How can I get there? And I worked out a strategy that I wanted to buy below market value properties because I'm making money on the way in. And I wanted to buy properties with positive cash flows, so they're putting money in my pocket each week to support an income and a lifestyle. And I wanted to buy them with upside for capital growth. So there's 3 things that I look at, but it was more of the strategy. Looking back now, I always talk about, those 3 elements, but the strategy was ultimately to get the right vehicle. Property is just a vehicle to get me from where I am to where I want to be. And when I first started out, I didn't know anything. There was no internet, there was no YouTube, there was no videos out there, there was no mentors.
There was no Nathan Birch you can get in touch with to learn from.
There was there was nothing out there. And I just had a strategy that if I could have 10 properties that would be giving me $100 a week in my pocket, that's $1,000 a week. 50 grand seemed like big income at 18, and when I bought the first one, and I was like, that's my goal. So I thought if I could do that by the age of 30, I'll be great. And then I didn't know how the fuck I was going to get there. I just hustled.
So how did you buy your first home?
So between the age of 13 and 18, I worked in a family business. We had a fish shop, so I was selling goldfish and tropical fish and fish tanks and all that sort of stuff, like a pet shop. And I just worked on the weekends. I'd finish school earlier in the day so I could come at work, earn some money. And I'd saved a deposit of about 35, 40 grand by the time I was 18. And I bought my first property in Western Sydney in Mount Druitt in the blue collar suburb. And that was my first one. And I just wanted to buy a second one very quickly. And I worked hard, saved up the second deposit, worked hard, saved up the third deposit. And then I didn't even know what equity was. I didn't know anything. My family were like, debt's bad, don't get into debt. And I realised that debt was a really great strategy because it's not necessarily always the property goes up in value. It's that the currency loses its value and debt becomes irrelevant with inflation. So I can pay off today's debt with tomorrow's dollar and get the asset for free. So nowadays it's more of a game.
And 200 properties later.
Yeah, they're properties that I own still. Like I've bought and sold maybe like 50 or 100 on top of that. I haven't even counted them. But yeah, I own over 200 at the moment. So.
How do you manage over 200 homes? Do you even have properties that you don't even know where they are?
I actually try and keep tabs on everything. So I like to think I've got good memory.
Yes.
Depends who's asking me, but I do have good memory, and I have it systemized just like a business. So I've always treated my property investing like a business. I think it's important. A lot of people go out there and they buy a property and hope that it goes up and praise that it does something for them. But I've always looked at the property as to what is the property going to do for me, and is it going to put me closer to my goals or further away? What do I need today in order to get closer to those goals? So purely the property is just a vehicle. And I have processes and systems in place that just make it like clockwork. And you keep
most of your properties?
Yeah, I keep them all, yeah.
Well, there you go. Now, there are many people that are watching this. They could be 20 years old and they are working as an accountant or a doctor or a plumber.
Yeah.
And they want to get to your level. They want to have 200 properties,
Yeah.
and they have to start with one.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them buying that one property, and how can they get to 200?
Yeah. Well, it all starts with one. Right? You don't go to the gym for the first day and end up like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? It starts with one
We all
sit
think
up.
we can.
We all think we
go
can,
to the
right?
gym.
we do. I keep procrastinating going to the gym nowadays, but it all starts with one push-up, one chin-up, one arm curl. So looking at getting started, like it's important to have a strategy to get to where you want to be. So I think it's important to identify what are your goals, where are you trying to go to, where are we starting from. If we're talking about traveling somewhere, in 2020 we can't really travel many places. We're lucky to travel 5Ks now in some places, right? But if we wanted to travel somewhere, I always ask people, how would someone get to Perth? Right? And people go, you'd fly there. Right? It's not necessarily you fly there, because some people actually live in Perth already. They're already there. Some people might not even be in Australia. They might be overseas somewhere. If you were to fly to Perth, a plane isn't going to land at your house. You're going to have to catch an Uber to the airport, a bus, a train, whatever. So the property is purely the vehicle. It's important to know where the end goal is and where you're starting from, so you can work out what vehicle you need at what stage in order to get to where you want to be. So planning is really crucial, and to work out, what properties do I need? Do I need a house? Do I need a unit, a villa? Am I looking for something that's giving me equity, cash flow, growth? What is the property going to achieve for you? It all starts with one. I see people that come to me that are on massive incomes and they've got really messed up positions because they've been hurt by someone that's given poor financial advice or a scammer or whatever. I see people that come to me and they're just starting out and they're like 18 or 20 or 23, 25, and they might have 50 grand saved up and they might be on 60 grand a year, and they can do awesome things with that. So most of my investors that I work with, the aim is to get sort of 10 plus properties in their portfolio within 5 years. Most people that I talk to end up getting like 2 properties a year. For 5 years, there's 10 properties. Once you've got 10, you've knocked the walls a little bit and found you learn a lot. So yeah, looking at no matter where you're starting from, like most of the people that I know that have got double-digit property portfolios, they're on humble sort of incomes. They're not on millions of dollars a year. They could be on 50 grand, 80 grand, 100 grand, a household income of 150 grand. They might only have 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand saved up, but it all starts from somewhere. Discipline, having a commitment and a focus to your goals. There's lots of people that are out there that want to be successful but don't want to do what it takes to be successful. And I think the same thing that would apply to any business would apply to property investing. If you can treat your property investing like a business, you're going to be way better than
What challenges would people have if they want to grow their property portfolio?
Yeah.
What is something they should look for?
Thinking back over almost 20 years now, when I first started, I had a face full of pimples. Now I've got all grey hair. I shave and I get cuts now, but it's like, I hide it. But there's lots of things that I've learned and lots of hurdles and challenges over the way. A lot of them are mindset changes, how you perceive things. It's just like the movie The Matrix, right? It's not the spoon that bends, it's the mind that bends and the possibilities that bend with that. Looking at probably the biggest challenges for myself personally would have always been finance.
Yes.
If it wasn't for me being able to get access to finance, I'd have thousands of properties here talking to you today. But unfortunately, it's only a couple of hundred humble homes. But
200 is still a lot of homes.
It still is. I see people out there that talk about larger quantities of properties and stuff like that. But like these, when I talk about the homes that I own, they're like ones that I've bought myself personally and having as a personal portfolio. There is a level of debt there. Like I have about 18 mil worth of debt. Some people that are watching might be like, wow, that's a lot of debt that you've got.
But also your end value would be more.
It's about 65 mil at the moment.
65 million.
So
that's
if
not a small number.
It's
35.
35.
It's really easy to think, probably for you now, you have over 200 properties.
Yeah.
But it's not easy getting to that point. There's a lot of hard work. So a lot of younger generations, when they are, watching people like yourself, they think, it's easier, I can have 200 homes over time. But it wasn't easy. It's a long road, it's a journey, and a lot of hard work goes into it.
It is. There's sacrifices, commitment, and when building that portfolio out, like the first deposit was hard, the second deposit was hard, the third deposit was hard. Nothing's ever been easy, but nothing in life ever is, and nothing worthwhile ever is easy as well, because otherwise everyone will be doing it. But I think about it now, like there was never a day where confetti fell from the ceiling and it was like, wow, we can chuck a party, you can retire, right? It's just gradually, like, life became better. I had more options in life, more things that I could do. And I look at it now and I think to myself, like, what has really changed? Like, I've got options of freedom, options of not having to go to work. I think about it, I think, okay, if I had to sell off one property a year, I've got 200 years there, and sell off one property for the next 200 years, right? Like, I've been able to set it up for life, but that didn't come without any sort of great sacrifices or commitments, or time commitments. I've worked 20-hour days for years. I still to this day work 20-hour days. There was a point where I worked for 7 years, 2 full-time jobs to get my deposits, to get started. I never earned in an income more than $100,000 a year when building my portfolio. My portfolio was built on under 100 grand a year, and I was fortunate.
It's possible for people to build a portfolio without, earning $1 million.
I was earning at all times. My highest income was about $110,000 from working 2 full-time jobs. That was for like 1 year of my career, and the rest of my just got either between 50 and 100 grand a year. And I just pumped all that money back into property. I made sacrifices. I used to save like 90% of my money. I tried to live at home as long as I could. I was fortunate enough at the age of 24 in the middle of the GFC in 2009 to quit my job. I realised I couldn't get finance using my pay slips anymore. So I realised that I was doing myself a disservice by being at work. I started doing some flips, and I bought some properties and renovated and went to sell them. And it was like, I was picking up properties for like 20 grand that were kicked in, fire damaged, like very different to where we are today. And those properties, like I had 5 of them, and I spent like 25 grand, 20 grand on renovating each one, and I owned them outright. And I was sitting there thinking, I can sell these and make like 600-700 grand profit on them, or I could keep them, and those properties, equity to keep going. But that's an extra $200 a week times 5. There's an extra $1,000 a week, 50 grand a year. So that was to my bottom line, the cash flow.
I'm not sure if you realize, Nathan, you are inspiration. And I'm not saying this because I'm actually interviewing you, but you are inspiration to many people, including myself. I'm a little bit older than you. I'll definitely look older than you. I'm not sure how much older I am, but you're inspiration to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I hope you really realize that.
I don't actually think of it as that, because I just walk through life and just, do things that, I find fun, and like people can gain some benefit from that, and that's cool. That's what excites me nowadays. So
do you sit back and think to yourself, wow, I'm 35 years old at 200 homes. I mean, journey has been hard to get to any successful point in your life.
Yeah.
But once you get there, do you ever sit back?
No, I never sit there and look at it. Like, I enjoy life. Like, I appreciate and respect where I'm at the moment, but still, like, we're right that this is still like very early days, right? Like 35 years old, right? What about when I'm 65 years old? What about when I'm 85? What about if I'm going to do 100, right? I'm like 1/3 of my way through my life, and I wasted 20 of those years being a dickhead and not knowing how to get through life, like learning and going to school and growing and that. So looking at where I'm at the moment, like where to in the future, all that sort of stuff. Like, I like to give back. Like, sometimes people think I'm a bit out there with some of my thoughts and the way I perceive things, but I feel like there was once I used to feel like I was Neo in the Matrix.
Yes.
Back in the day when I had an ego, but now I feel like a bit more like Morpheus in the Matrix, right? Being able to help and be able to give back, and seeing people that can, maybe there'll be someone that gets 1,000 properties, right? Yes. Is it all about property? No. I made a goal of being, when I was 30, my goal was to get 10 properties at the age of 30. And when I got to 30, I had about 150 properties, and I was like, I want to be a billionaire by the age of 40. And what I've been doing over the last 5 years, the reason why I haven't been accumulating as much on the number front is a lot of the properties I've been buying, I've got like massive land holdings. Like in Sydney, I've got about 150,000 square metres of land that I want to redevelop and put housing estates in. I've got sort of large land holdings. I just bought 5 million square metres of land in central New South Wales for a solar farm, so some stuff that's outside of property. And I had a goal at 30 to be a billionaire by the age of 40. And
you're definitely on the way there.
I'm on the way there. We're all on the way there, but could it be closer? Yes. Could it be further away? Yes. I'm excited where things at the moment. A lot of people are scared about the world in 2020. I'm most excited. I haven't been so excited ever, right? Like my face hurts sometimes from smiling and like laughing about it. It's so great. Because it's like, it's a good time to be alive. It's a good time to be alive, and there's so much opportunity in 2020. And people, where to from here? Like, I'll be 40 in 5 years' time. I want to be a billionaire by 40. I've got 5 years to like push it and make it happen. And it's like, run. And I think,
from my understanding, part of your business is you're also helping other people do what you have done.
Yeah.
Correct? Tell us more about that.
So basically, I run a company called B.Invested. I started that 11 years ago. I founded the business. There wasn't any buyers agents out there back in 2009. I created one of the first buyers agencies out there in the marketplace. And I'm very unorthodox with how I run my business because I don't have to do it. I do it more for fun, and I run my office like a family office where I help people build wealth. Doesn't matter where they are in life. So most of my investors are sort of either first homeowners or just normal mums and dads sort of, got a house and they want to build a portfolio. And I sort of take them on that journey of the period of sort of 5 to 10 years to get them to where they want to be and help them reach their goals. So I run a buyers agency where I purchase properties that are below market value, upside for capital growth and a strong cash flow. In capital cities like Sydney in 2020, I was still picking up for like 280K for a property. Brisbane, pick up stuff as cheap as I picked up one the other day for 85 grand in Brisbane.
Which suburb?
It's in Ipswich area. I picked up actually a unit, an office in Toowong, right? About 6 months ago for 107,000. It sold in 1982 for 85,000.
But what's important right now that if people don't know where to start, not that I'm marketing your business right now, but they can literally go.
I appreciate it.
Definitely. We'll definitely put a link out there. So if anybody wants to buy property, if they do have a different professions, if they don't, see, the thing is, when you were starting, you didn't have you to help you.
There was no one. I've seen people.
So you were like me. You were shoveling, make mistakes, learn, and just keep grabbing things. But right now, things are simplified. So people can actually get in touch with your office and they can say, look, we want to start somewhere, help us.
Exactly.
Your company is there to do so.
Exactly. So as a part of the B.Invested group, have a buyer's agency, have an investment firm, I have a financial planning business, I have a finance company, have managements all around Australia, and I help people just get ahead, so it doesn't matter which part of their journey they're on. I have about 100 staff in the business.
Started from 13 years old, started for dreaming, 100 staff.
Selling goldfish.
Selling goldfish.
Yeah, exactly. And
so the vehicle is there to obviously help
for
others.
people to be able to do so. So over the last sort of 11 years of me publicly being out there making YouTube videos and helping people, there's been some really beautiful stories. Like we'll talk a bit beforehand off camera. I was like, when I think I might have said even on camera, like I was like 25 years old, and when I first started the business, I had an ego where I was like, I want to be famous. I want to be cool. I want to be like Donald Trump, right? Whatever the case may be at the time. And the ego had to die for me to be able to grow and keep pushing forward. And a lot of people's opinions and egos and that get them hurt in life. And looking at some of the beautiful stories that are out there, the community is bigger than I am, right? That's what I had to understand. And as the business has grown, like I've got lots of mums and dads that have got double-digit portfolios that are quitting their jobs, that have been able to scale back from 5 days at work down to 3 days at work. Everybody's journey is different, and I've got a lot of my staff have large property portfolios. Really, really cool stories, and it's
right.
It's
and
amazing.
I got more questions from. I did an Instagram little video 1 hour before you got here, and I told everybody I'm going to interview yourself.
Yeah.
And asked them to give me questions. So,
cool.
Question 1: what's the best way to start?
Yeah.
Home occupier or investor? What's the best unit or house?
Okay, cool. just depends on what your goals are. So for me, I remember opened up a newspaper article when I bought my first house. So my first house was like Western Sydney, 248 grand, but my first house I lived in was like 5 acres, and it was 1.2 mil. And when I moved into a principal place of residence, I opened up these boxes that had old newspapers in it. And one of the newspapers said, this guy's like, got 150 properties in it, etc. And I thought to myself, this is pretty funny because I've got 150 properties and this is my first house, right? To live in.
First home.
Exactly, first home. And looking at it, it depends on everybody's goals, right? Like if you've got a family, you want to have stability, buy a house to live in. If you want to, hit the ground hustling, like I think that if we see the market double in like, whether it be today, tomorrow, 5 years, 10 years down the track, would you want to double your family home of $500,000 into $1 million, which you still need that house? Or would you want to double 20 properties or 10 properties at 250, 300 grand a piece? You could be doubling 5 mil into 10 mil.
I think that's a good answer that will get a lot of people thinking.
You want the asset base there to be able to take through. So there's no right or wrong. Having a strategy that works in line with your goals. I think of that taco ad where the little kid says, why don't we have the taco that stands up, right?
Yes.
Why can't you have both? Why can't you have the principal place and, in the investment?
What has been the most challenging thing you have came across?
It's a good one. It's a good one.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Knowledge, a lot of it inner self. Getting educated on, what's happening out there, finding your own journey, right? Like a lot of people just go through life, they go to a 12-year indoctrination camp, they become an employee that goes to get a job. And I think breaking that mold to be able to, there's a lot of pressures that are around in life, people's social pressures to say, be this, do that. I think breaking through them and breaking through the social normal and being able to, take actions and make moves, I think that's a big one. Banks have always been an issue for me. I don't fit their mold anymore, so it's getting finance is always a pain. A good one is that I've never actually lost money on any of my properties. Never lost money on any of my properties because I'm buying them so far below market value. I make money from day one. And looking at opportunity cost, like I had a lot of opinions back in the early days. That was from fear, I didn't know. And getting back to what I was saying before and about some of my staff and some of the stories that I've seen out there, I see people, it took me like 7-8 years to get to 20 properties. I've got investors that get there in like 2 years and 3 years, right? And it's like, it's seeing them not have to take the mistakes.
It must be also a great feeling for you as well, to be able to help them get there a lot faster than you took yourself.
It's very humbling. It's a humbling journey.
What are some crucial lessons that you have learned over the years investing?
One of the big ones, the whole paradigm shift, and this is like pretty deep sort of answer. Debt becomes irrelevant with inflation. I've never met anyone that sits there and goes, I'm so glad I sold my house in 1999. I'm so glad I sold my house in 2010.
And you have 100 people that tell you, I wish I didn't.
Wish I didn't, but I never heard anyone that said, I'm glad I did, right? And the reason being is that debt becomes irrelevant with inflation. We're in a time now we've got currencies crashing all around the world, and being able to understand how the monetary system works. Like, there's not many people out there in Australia that talk about how the monetary system works around property. And I see property being a vehicle, but it's the chessboard we need to understand, and that's how our economy works and our currency works. So,
What are the top 3 things you look at when analyzing a property to invest in?
I don't care if it's a house, a unit, townhouse, villa, etc. For me, the top 3 things would be buying it below market value, upside for capital growth, and having a strong cash flow.
Question for you. If you're 18 and your mom and dad are telling you to study law or medicine, but you really hate school, would you listen to them, or do you give advice to somebody, just do what you want?
Your parents are living their life, right? And they're enforcing their life onto you at that point. So
we don't want any parents to end up hating Nathan or me asking the question.
I've had lots of people, because like I didn't do great at school, right? I did okay. And
Have you gone to uni?
no, I never went to uni.
So you never went to university.
No.
And once again, I'm going back to over 200 properties.
Correct. I'll tell you an interesting story. Like, no one's ever heard me talk about this. Like, I was like 16 and my dad died of a heart attack. And
Sorry
that's okay.
that.
I don't mean to make it all somber and stuff, but yeah, a lot of people like don't realize that my as a part of that, like my mum was told as a part of my dad's sort of like super, if he was to die and he had a school-age child or a minor, that that they'd pay like $25,000 a year until the age of 25 to do education. I was the first person in my family to finish school, right, at year 12. No one else in my family. I've got 3 older brothers. I've got like 18 nieces and nephews. And I was the first person in my family to actually finish school. And my mum had said to me, if I go to university, she'll buy me whatever car I wanted. The best car I could think of at the time was a Honda S2000, right? And, yeah, it was cool in the day, right? And yeah, I said to my mum, look, I don't want to go to uni. And she's like, well, the option's there if you want to go to uni. And I was like, look, I reckon that it's great that, you know, I could go to university for 5 years, get paid to go to university. So I would have gone to university for free. And I was like, I believe that I can make it better on my own by doing what I wanted to do. And I had a plan at that point. And I remember I was on a date with a girl maybe like 5-6 years ago. I was walking around Sydney and I called my mum up and I was like, Mum, do you remember you told me that you'd buy me this car if I went to university and stuff? She's like, oh yeah, but I was like 80. And I was like, Mum, it just occurred to me, I've got a $500,000 Bentley. I bought cash, right? And like it was cool at the time. Me and my mum had a laugh, and it was like I went out there and created it. And you know, a lot of people will be told and programmed by what their parents know. And I always think to myself, like when I was 18 years old, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I remember that like friends and family were saying, why are you buying these properties for? You should buy these properties, you should do that, and whatnot. And I thought to myself, like, if I do what you've done, I'll get what you've got, right? If I, you know, successfully...
Very good point.
Yeah, I was 18, I didn't know anything, right? And I was thinking, why are you telling me, like, what I've got and what I've done is perfect, right? What I've, like, the actual, you know, properties have a plan, right? I have a strategy. There's the 10 properties by the age of 30 that bring me in $1,000 a week. That was my goal. How will that property get me to my goal, right? It wasn't. It wouldn't get me there. So I always question, how would this help me get there? And you know, if you're going to become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever your parents want you to be, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame, right? There's great life there. But if that's not what you want to do, you should just go and do what you want to do and become the best at it as well. So, yeah.
It's been a pleasure having you today.
Thank you.
You know I'm going to chase you in 5 years' time. If you don't have $1 billion, you know, I'm going to tell everybody, hey, he's 2 million short.
But well, I'm sure I'll be able to find it somewhere.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you for sharing your knowledge. And if anybody wants to see more what Nathan does, there's a link to his site, and you can see how he can help you get to that level.
Thank you for having me, and
Pleasure.
Appreciate the hospitality, and very humble. Thank you.
Seriously, but thank you.